I guess we're good to go. Good morning all, and welcome to the Forum on Open Education. I'm Deepak Partu. I'm a learning designer with the Center for Flexible Learning, and my talk today is about, again, in relation to the initiatives that USP is taking in regards to open education. So what I'll share with you today is the experience of offering USP's first MOOC, and you'll get to see. I'll try to shed some light on the experiences of actually doing this. Right. So it's titled as a new wave of Pacific learning and teaching, the University of the South Pacific's first ever MOOC. In fact, it's I think, Ian, if I'm not mistaken, the first MOOC that was offered in the South Pacific. Yes. Right, so a brief overview about my presentation. It's to do with the background, how it came to be, the process that we took to design it and develop it and offer it, some background about the participants, statistics, and so forth. Right, so in terms of the background, UNESCO Jakarta in 2015 approached the USP to offer, as part of its initiative in trying to promote development for developing countries, to actually offer a masterclass series that they run. So they have this initiative together with the Japanese Funding Trust, where they organize a masterclass series for specific topics or areas which really affect the concerned region. So in this case, it was to do with climate change. And so a proposal was sent to us to say that why not you run a masterclass series. So Ian happened to be the contact person, and then what happened was that we came up with a suggestion to say why not we do something additional to the just the masterclass series, which happened to be 4 live lectures. So instead of just doing that, we proposed the idea of actually offering a MOOC simultaneously with the masterclass series, and which the UNESCO Jakarta which accepted, and then we wrote a proposal to actually cover the costs and all that, and which they again approved, and then eventually the MOOC was accepted and offered in September 2015. In terms of the platform, we got in touch with, through the Commonwealth of Learning, we got in touch with the Institute of Technology in India, Kanpur, and so they actually sponsored the platform which was called MOOC. So this has been specially designed to run MOOCs as opposed to Moodle, which is a learning management system. So designing USP's first ever MOOC, again, as I have mentioned, since it was the first MOOC, I guess nobody had the experience of doing this, so it was more of getting in touch with people who knew what to do, reading and all sorts of things, and then we came up with our own strategy to actually design and develop and offer it. So I could break it down into 6 steps, which was firstly to say that it was again an initiative which was through UNESCO, so a working group was established, and then part of the role of the working group was to actually determine the content of the course and all other aspects in relation to actually offering the MOOC. Once that was done, then we went to the second step, which was to do with the designing of the MOOC. And in terms of the content, the working group came up to a conclusion that no new content will be developed, but rather bits and pieces of the current climate change program that is offered by PACE-SD would then form the content of the course. So really to say that no new content was to be created, but rather reused from existing courses because of the time frame to actually offer the course. So in that aspect, then we moved on to step 2, which was to design the MOOC. So what all went into the designing? So we had to determine that there's a few types of MOOC, so whether it's a traditional or conventional, the X-MOOC and so forth. So we had to decide what sort of MOOC structure we wanted, whether it was more led by the teacher or you have the students generating information and so forth. The topics of the course, a template for presentation, logos, designs aspects, marketing aspects of, and so forth. So that was to do with the design aspect of the course. Then we moved on to the platform, which was the most challenging aspect. So MOOC was something that was introduced to us there and then. So we had to learn fairly quickly to say how you operate a particular platform, and then how to actually get content on the platform and so forth. And then moving on to delivery and support. So that started off with the registration of participants, and then how the course was structured was that there were five main modules, which was released on a weekly basis. So each module covered 2 key concepts, and then it went for about 5 to 7 weeks. And then finally you had a course evaluation, and certificates were also issued as part of this course. This was issued free of charge as compared to other MOOC providers which would normally charge a fee for certification. So since this was the first time we did this, we decided that we would offer certificates, which was free of charge. And then ongoing, so as part of the MOOC, there was a social media was also involved. So a Facebook group was created, and that's since 2015 it's been running till date. And then we have about more than 2,500 members actively participating in that group. So just to give you a brief overview about the participants, how the participants were spread over the globe. So we had about 1,500 or so participants from about 58 different countries. The darker shade of green actually symbolizes more as to the dense in terms of the population where the people. So most of them were from the region because, again, I guess the title of the MOOC was Climate Change and the Pacific Islands. So quite a lot of focus was on the Pacific, while at the same time we had participants through UNESCO Jakarta in Asia and Africa as well. So just to share some statistics in terms of the actual content for the videos and all that. So the main learning resource for MOOCs, as you would know, are short, sharp videos, trying to capture and deliver in a fairly short amount of time. So what you see is the average time that students have been spending on each of the resources. Just I guess something similar to what Deepak was mentioning, trying to see where people are and all sorts of things. And also, as we all know, connectivity is one of the major barriers that we have in the Pacific. So on the contrary, we also provided transcripts of the actual videos. So this, together with the PowerPoints, PDFs, they had notes, transcripts, which pretty much said what was in the video. So students could either view the video or could actually download the materials and read it. It provided the same exact information. And for the purpose of certification, of course, it's not given just like that for you being part of the course. You had to do certain things like quizzes, and an optional field assignment. So this was a summary of quiz responses. So judging by the number on the left, so about 600 participants on average were participating out of the 1,300 to 1,400 active participants in the course. And so 4 modules by 2 key lectures, 8 quizzes for each particular lecture. And this was sort of the trend that you would see. And the purple line is giving you the pass rate in terms of percentage for each particular quiz, and also the average mark for the particular quiz. Quizzes were multiple choice true or false kind of questions, very in terms of the mechanics quite brief and in some way automated, so that there's less work on the part of the instructors to actually take care of that. Evaluation of the MOOC. So in terms of the overall completion rate, we came out after doing the math. We came out with the figure of 28%, which is fairly large for MOOCs. Generally, you'd see completion rates hitting between 5 to 15%, depending on the number of users and other aspects as well. So we were fairly happy, rather very happy with the completion rate. And that was, like I said, broken down into 2 aspects. There were 2 criteria for certificates. there was a certificate of completion in which students had to do an optional field assignment, and I'll just show you what it led to later on. And also, if you just did the 8 quizzes and you passed 5 out of the 8 quizzes, then you were eligible for a participation certificate. So 11.75% fell in that criteria, and then about 400, 2 to 300 people then opted to do the final assignment. And in terms of the success of it, in 2016, when we had the new intake for PACE-SD students, when they applied for registration, there were 10 students who actually attached the certificate to say that they were really interested in the area of climate change, and that gave us as evidence to say that yes, these people have successfully completed and really are into the area of climate change. So not that it was required, but that they still did that to say that we have participated and we are really enthusiastic about climate change as a subject. And in terms of the survey response rate, we had a response rate of 16.78%. So which again is fairly high. And you may say that we made it sort of compulsory because certificates did not open up until you were to do the survey. So that was one of the ways we ensured that people were doing the surveys. So that came as a condition to say that if you really want to have a certificate, you fill the survey. In terms, just to give you a brief of what the survey and the details of that was, qualification of MOOC participants, so in terms of whether the educational background that they had, so there were few that 2% that had doctorate qualification, 4% had doctorate qualification, 2% had no qualification, and the rest had some form of qualification from high school to postgraduate. So these are the participants. Hours spent on the MOOC on a weekly basis. In terms of during designing, we expected them to spend at least 2 to 3 hours. So the lecture itself was about 15 to 20 minutes with a whole bunch of reading resources, and also for them to do the quiz, so roughly about 2 to 3 hours. Internet connectivity used to access the course. Again, this is something really important in terms of information for us to say what sort of internet they have. And so most of the participants had wired or wireless internet connectivity. And the devices, again, something. So mostly through PC or tablets. And then effectiveness of social media. So we had a Facebook group and a Twitter account running, and these were synchronous in terms of any postings that were happening on the forum, on the platform. These were being replicated real time in the Facebook page and also in the Twitter page. So really you couldn't miss any of the discussions that were happening. So just to give you a indication in terms of how the social network graph was created over the 7-week course. So we started off with, I started since I was managing it, so you can see my account. So with a few people during the start of the course in week 1, so fairly small amount of people were on Facebook and Twitter. Then it evolved to something as such in week 2, then week 3. So as the more nodes that you see, the blue dots, and the bigger the dots, the more prominent that particular person became in terms of posting and all that. And so that evolved from week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, and this is what we came up with right at the end, where everybody was sort of connected in some way. So you were having some form of sharing happening amongst the participants that were on Facebook and Twitter. Right, in terms of recommendations, I guess we can say that MOOC is a great tool for capacity building in the Pacific Island countries. Of course, internet and accessibility is something that we really need to consider, because the form of learning at times does occur in rich media, because videos and all that. But how we dealt with it in our scenario was that we provided the alternatives. So this was provided in PDFs and PowerPoints with the full transcript, which is far less than what you would see in a video. But of course, certain things cannot be done without videos, so you really need that. But for those videos, we need to consider how you can actually make it more accessible to the region, or for that matter, any place where internet connectivity is an issue. And what we also saw was that in this case, the use of social media encouraged more and free discussions and thoughts and ideas in comparison to traditional courses. So the facilitators, of course, these are existing lecturers. They have been running the climate change course for about 5 or 6 years in an online mode. But what fascinated them was that when they saw the content of the discussion, they were quite fascinated to say that, the sort of discussion happening is something that they have not seen in their courses, in the traditional courses. So I guess it could be to the fact that it's Facebook and Twitter, it's not assessed or anything, you cannot have any form of, so I guess that is why it encouraged more an open discussion, but that is something that really fascinated the lecturers. So just to show you in terms of the optional field assignment that we had, so in 2015 there was this COP21 conference in Paris. So PACE SD or USP through PACE SD has a slot for presentation at the forum. So what we did was that the optional field assignment was to be the presentation, formed the presentation at COP21 from PACE SD. So what students were doing was that they had to do a one-pager to say how climate change has affected them over a period of time. So their message basically to COP21 to say, how for the leaders to say what they need to consider for all these others. So what you see is just few examples of what the participants had actually submitted. All right. And in terms of further work, so since 2015, USP has offered 2 more MOOCs. In 2016, we offered a MOOC in Pacific Studies. And currently, as I speak, we are re-offering the Climate Change and Pacific Islands MOOC that initially ran in 2015. And that comes to an end this week, Friday. So just to give you an insight, there's about 1,600 participants for this particular, for the current offering of the MOOC. And I guess 1 or 2 people, or few of you are actually participating in the re-offering of the MOOC. So that's what we are at in terms of MOOCs at USP. We can take questions towards the end.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.